So it's been a crazy generation. This generation, I think, is going to go down in history as one that has changed so many things that we traditionally thought about when it comes to video games. I mean, the console market, the exclusives, the whole multi-platform strategy that's taken place, the consolidation with all of the purchases from Xbox, from PlayStation, and then from other publishers out there. You see Xbox now becoming the biggest publisher. At least last month in December, they were the number one in terms of revenue. And I can see that continuing to happen. Maybe not every single month, but especially when games like Call of Duty comes out, it will be up there. And one of the main catalysts that I think has pushed the industry, specifically from the Xbox and the PlayStation side, has been the PC market, the PC gamers, and just the overall growth that is available there. It's obvious now, this is the target market for growing if you're a console manufacturer. The whole multi-platform strategy, Xbox has taken off with it. They are putting all of their games on PlayStation. It does seem like there's more rumors going around, and now that Forza is gone onto PlayStation, you could assume that there really is no red line whatsoever as to what they could put, because Forza was a tentpole game for Xbox. It was one of their main games that when you thought about Xbox, you thought about Forza. That's now on PlayStation. So they're willing to put Halo, they're willing to put Gears. And I don't think that's an issue whatsoever for gamers. I don't think it's an issue for me at all. I do not care, because I play my games and more people playing it does not bother me. But when it comes to why they are expanding out, why they are doing this, and you're seeing PlayStation do the same thing, they're going to be going day and date PC in the future at some point. It's because of the fact that the whole industry has basically consolidated into a singular platform for development. I get it. Consoles, they're the boxes, and inside the boxes, they have certain specs that have to be met. You have the PlayStation, the Xbox side of things, but they're PCs under the hood now. This isn't like it was in the older generations where they were completely different. You had to develop separate games for these devices, for these consoles. You had to develop a game for the Super Nintendo, and you had to develop a game for the Sega Genesis, so much so that the games were different, and there was always comparisons as to the difference between them and which version was better. Now, what we basically just have here are PCs with a different plastic shell that have different clock speeds for their CPUs and slightly different amount of power for the GPU, which leads me to believe that developers just have a much easier time getting these games out across all the platforms, makes these games accessible on PC a lot easier. If you remember back in the day, generations ago, there were a lot of games that just weren't on PC, but that's pretty much gone away at this point. I think PC is a primary place for a lot of these games that do release now, as they end up being the best versions of the games. This isn't even like back when we had the 360 versus the PS3, where PS3 had issues at the beginning of the generation, when the cell processor was something that held games back, and then eventually took developers a few years into the generation before they realized how to use it. We don't have that anymore. It's all on the same architecture. So game comes out on PC, Xbox, PlayStation, it's the same thing. They're all PCs under the hood, running basically the same type of stuff with different levels of power. And PC is a catalyst right now to where this industry is going, where we are going with multi-platform, and the biggest place of growth for PlayStation and for Xbox. So much so we saw this report here this week that was very, very interesting. And again, it definitely will point towards where we are going to be going in the future. And that is PC gaming being the place where you're going to get everything. PlayStation, Xbox, maybe even Nintendo at some points, all going to be there. Because we have this here saying PC gaming brought in significantly higher revenue than consoles in the last decade. So now they have plenty of data to show where they want their games to be, because that's where they're going to make the most amount of money. It says here, the data reveals that while both platforms have seen exceptional growth over the years, it seems like PC gaming has seen stronger momentum, which has certainly been reflected in the revenue figures. Since the last decade, PC gaming has been said to bring in up to 220% higher revenue than the console platform, which is indeed astonishing considering how the general notion is that consoles have contributed more to the gaming industry in general. And I would say that is probably the notion that most people do have. And up until like the last decade, it probably was that way, which is why when you see things like we saw during the ABK deal that was going on, and you saw the graphs that came out and showed where Xbox is going to be able to grow, and PC was a huge place of growth for them. Cloud was also a huge place of growth. the console is stagnant, and it's not just on the Xbox side of things, it's also on the PlayStation side of things. They are continuously selling to the same amount of customers. There's just not enough room for growth there. And I think that the major reason is because of just the generational change in how consumers want to play their games. Specifically with the younger generations, they literally do not care. They don't care whether they're playing on a console, whether they're playing on a PC. They just want to be able to play their game. I mean, half of them are playing Fortnite on their phones. They literally don't care about this whole console war thing that is mainly my generation and older that take part in this type of stuff, believing that these boxes that are PCs under the hood now are actually significantly different, that there is this huge thing that makes them more valuable than the other. The thing that makes these things more valuable is where can these games and where can these publishers make the most amount of money possible. And it is going to be on the PC in the future, and it's going to be games everywhere. And I think this just pushes that point home even more, as a 220% higher revenue intake over the console platform is something that they are all looking at, and they are all thinking we need to make sure that this is the platform that has our games on top of the consoles itself. Whereas previously they probably didn't pay as much attention to the PC platform. Here is the actual chart itself, and it just shows you it is big. PC is a big bright spot, adding 65% more content spend than living room console since 2011, and 225% more than combined consoles, or $30 billion in total. And again, this has been over the last decade. So when we sit back, you have to really take in kind of what Xbox has been doing, specifically from when they started with their whole play anywhere, when they started putting their first party games onto PC. This has been a long time now. This isn't just the last year. This has been, I believe, around 2017 or 2016, whenever they launched Play Anywhere. Phil Spencer came out, I believe it was at one of their big showcases, and talked about this feature that you could have your saves on PC and then would transfer over to your console. And then this coincided here with the Game Pass launch and everything. It was then that they had already been looking at these numbers. I'm almost positive in seeing that PC was a huge contributor and a huge growth place for them, and continuously just only locking stuff to the console was a losing strategy going forward. This is why we always talk about Xbox and PlayStation, who is better set up for the future. I think it's really a no-brainer at this point. It is Xbox by far. People are really pissed off online, and I think it's honestly a minority of fanboys that always outrage no matter what when it comes to these announcements, even though we've been hearing about these announcements for over a year. But they are far better set up for the future because of the ecosystem that they do currently have, which includes putting games on PlayStation, but then really hits the PC side of things with Play Anywhere, and that feature is continuing to roll out and be better. And we are seeing the cloud gaming side of things come in, where people are going to be playing their games on their phone and everywhere. In fact, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 has been added to their play on the cloud. Even if you purchased it, features that they do have, it's not just going to be Game Pass games. So when it comes to the future right now, Xbox is, I think, significantly in the lead and set up better than what PlayStation is doing. But I do think PlayStation is going to get there. They are generally a little bit slower here to advancing with this type of stuff, and I think it's because they have such a huge lead in the console race. I mean, they've destroyed Xbox in the console race for sure, but because of that, they've been kind of sitting back and not making the adjustments fast enough, and you're seeing it all kind of come to fruition now when they're putting more games onto PC. When you heard the quote from Hiroki Totoki that we talked about in the other video, that they are looking at a more multi-platform strategy to make more money from their first party. And then you think about the shuffling that has happened at PlayStation with Hideaki Nishino, trying to say the name correctly, now becoming the CEO of PlayStation. He's more on the business side of things. If you don't think he's looking at the numbers and how they can make more money, how they can grow their ecosystem, it's all coming to a head here, where going forward into the future, it's going to be all about the platform. It's not going to be about the console anymore. And this isn't just because Xbox is putting games on PlayStation. This is because this, I think, is the reality based off of the numbers and the data that we do see as to where the growth is in the video game market. It's going to be, you play where you want to play, but these games are going to be available everywhere. And you're basically just going to have more choice, and it's going to be better for the consumer. I think this is overall a very good thing for the gamer itself. If you're not a fanboy of any sort, you don't care about Xbox, you don't care about PlayStation, you're just a consumer of video games, right now, what is happening is going to make it better for us than I think it's ever been, where you've had to have like all of these different devices in your home to be able to play everything. Having that choice and taking down those barriers is always a good thing. I think that will also even drive down the prices of stuff, because you're not going to have to be locked into a certain ecosystem where the prices can be completely controlled, and they know that there's only a finite amount of people that are going to buy it every single time, and they'll have to hit a certain price threshold. Now you're going to see them see their numbers grow, selling more copies, and potentially give more value and content here for gamers across the board. So I think, again, this is a good thing. We'll see how it does continue to play out. But the biggest thing here that I think Xbox does have that will be huge going forward is going to be Xbox Play Anywhere. I wonder how that is going to play out going into the next gen when they do eventually release their console. How many of those games that do get released, third party specifically, buy in to Play Anywhere, put their games in that feature? How many of the third-party games also buy into the Xbox Cloud Gaming side of things? How is Xbox going to sell that to these publishers if their games aren't in Game Pass? That will be huge, because if they can get a majority of their catalog games that are on Xbox and PC into the Xbox Play Anywhere, that's going to be a huge differentiating factor, I think, for people where they decide to want to purchase their games. It's really going to be Steam, which I think for a lot of people is going to be their place really no matter what. But then if you have Play Anywhere and you have multiple devices that can play these games, you're going to probably lean a lot more towards that. And then you look at PlayStation, they're going to probably build out a PC app for PlayStation. They're removing the PSN requirements for their games, which is a very smart thing. I mean, if you're purchasing it on Steam at least, and they're going to be opening up how they access games. Think back to Crossplay and how much better gaming is now because of Crossplay, at least the multiplayer side of things. You can argue, yes, there's some bad things here with cheaters on PC, but overall, when you're jumping into a game, being able to play against your friends on PlayStation, if you're on Xbox, or vice versa, how much better of an experience that is. And if you remember back to it, who was trying to stop that the most? It was PlayStation. They will come around to this entire multi-platform thing. It is inevitable for their business. And then gaming overall, the barriers are going to be knocked down and gamers are going to benefit the most. But I will end the video there, guys. If you did enjoy this video, hit that thumbs up. If you're new here, hit that subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.